What if the most dangerous people in your life aren't the cruel or the violent, but the ones who quietly drain your soul while calling it love? What if evil doesn't come wearing claws or teeth, but smiles in the mirror, disguised as virtue? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The real danger, out there in the world, it's in the blindness of our own seeing. This isn't a story about others. It's a psychological mirror. Every dangerous person, just out there, they are living, breathing, and hiding within us. Each of us becomes dangerous when we stop looking inside, when we choose comfort over awareness, illusion over truth. Have you ever felt that strange unease, that someone's kindness hides a quiet hunger? Or that your own goodness sometimes feels like a mask, protecting you from your shadow? The world is a hall of mirrors. Every person you meet reflects a fragment of your inner world. Some mirrors flatter you, some distort you, and some show you what you most fear to see. Tonight, we'll walk through 6 of these mirrors, 6 archetypes Jung warned us about. Not to judge them, but to recognize them in ourselves. Because while true seeing is dangerous, blindness is fatal. Now, the first mirror appears a dim reflection wrapped in chains of its own making. Before we step deeper into this journey of the mind, pause for a moment. If something in these words already stirs your soul, if a part of you feels seen, then don't just watch. Be part of this. Subscribe to the channel, so you can walk with us through the shadows and into the light. And tell me in the comments, what truth do you see that others don't? Your reflection might just awaken someone else's. Now, let us begin. The first mirror, the one who refuses to see their own chains. What if freedom in the absence of chains, but the courage to see the ones we already wear? There are people and moments within ourselves who live bound by invisible ropes of habit, fear, and pride. They talk of truth, yet flinch when the mirror speaks. They seek awakening, yet fear the light that reveals their shadow. Jung called this the blindness of the ego, the refusal to meet one's own darkness. Such a person can seem harmless, even wise. They might speak of peace, love, and spirituality. But beneath the surface, they are terrified of seeing the truth that would dissolve who they think they are. Have you ever noticed how we cling to stories about ourselves? I am good. I am awakened. I am different. Yet when life tests us, these stories can shatter like glass. Imagine a bird born inside a cage. It has never seen the sky, yet it sings of freedom. It believes the bars are part of the world's design, that this is all there is. Now, imagine the door opens, light pours in. But instead of flying out, the bird trembles, because the open sky feels too vast. This is the tragedy of those who refuse to see their own chains. Their comfort becomes their captivity. Freedom begins not with escape, but with awareness. The moment you see your cage, it starts to rust. What if denial, improtection, but poison? The ego builds walls not to keep others out, but to keep the self from dissolving. It would rather be imprisoned and right than free and uncertain. This is why spiritual pride is so seductive. It whispers, "You've already arrived," and so, the journey ends before it even begins. Have you ever met someone who clings to their pain as if it defines them? Someone who rejects help, not because they want to suffer, but because healing would mean letting go of who they are. The first mirror is fogged. When you breathe on it, your reflection blurs. But if you wipe it clean, you might not like what you see. Still, that is where truth begins. To see one's own chains is painful, but that pain is sacred. It is the birth of awakening. Freedom isn't found by breaking the chains, but by no longer pretending they aren't there. The moment you see them, they lose their power. And from that awareness, the next shadow steps forward, not chained, but hungry, the one who feeds on your energy. Have you ever spent time with someone, and afterwards, felt completely wiped out? Not just tired, but drained, as if an invisible hand reached in and just pulled the life right out of you. Your focus, your peace, your good mood gone. It's a strange, Unsettling feeling, isn't it? Today, we're going to talk about the people who cause this, the ones who don't just take your time, but seem to feed on your very energy. These individuals aren't necessarily malicious. They don't set out to hurt you. They operate from a place of deep, insatiable need. A hunger for validation that no amount of love or attention can ever truly satisfy. They come into your life as friends, as partners, as wounded souls looking for a safe harbor. They see the warmth of your fire, and they get close, but instead of using your light to kindle their own flame, they start feeding on yours. The brilliant psychologist Carl Jung had a powerful insight about this. He said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what happens when one person resists that transformation? What happens when someone doesn't want to grow? They just want to consume. That's when you find yourself in a one-sided relationship. You tell yourself they need your help, that they're going through a tough time. You believe that love means sacrifice. But deep down, in that quiet place you rarely visit, you know this exchange is fundamentally unbalanced. You pour and you pour from your cup until there's nothing left. They might call it connection. They might even call it love. But all you feel is exhaustion. And yet, so often, we stay. Why? Because a part of us, the rescuer within, wants to be needed. The hero in us is drawn to their story of being a victim. And so, a silent dance begins. One person gives and gives to feel worthy, to feel like a good person. The other takes and takes just to feel alive, to fill a void that can never truly be filled from the outside. It's like a vine wrapping itself around a strong tree. It can look beautiful, almost romantic, this inseparable bond. But slowly, inevitably, the vine suffocates the tree withers. The real danger with these energy-draining souls isn't their hunger. It's our own willingness to let them feed on us. They act as a mirror, reflecting the parts of ourselves that confuse compassion with self-destruction. They trigger that old, mistaken belief that to be good, you must give until it hurts, that love requires you to erase your own needs. Think of your personal energy like sunlight. It's meant to radiate, to shine, to warm others. Yes. But it was never meant to be trapped and contained within someone else's shadow. You can offer warmth to people, but you cannot set yourself on fire just to keep them from feeling cold. There's a quiet, profound hero in learning to say no. It's about walking away, not with anger or resentment, but with a deep understanding of self-preservation. It's about realizing that boundaries aren't walls designed to push people away. They are sacred doors that protect your inner light, ensuring you have enough for yourself first. So, take a moment and ask yourself honestly, who in your life leaves you feeling smaller after you've been with them? Who consistently takes your time, your attention, your support, but never gives anything back in return? And when you try to create a little space, who calls your silence distance or accuses you of being selfish? This is a tough question, but it's crucial for your well-being. And now, for an even deeper, more uncomfortable question, where in your own heart do you sometimes feed on others to avoid your own emptiness? It's a humbling thought. The truth is, sometimes, we are the ones who drain others. We might steal a little time, a little attention, a little validation, not because we're cruel, but because we're afraid that without that external affirmation, we might just fade away. But here's the secret. The soul doesn't thrive on borrowed energy. It only truly blooms in the light that it generates from within. The people who genuinely love you, the ones who are truly your allies in this life, will never ask for your fire. They won't demand that you burn yourself out for them. Instead, they will pull up a chair, sit beside you, and be inspired to build their own fire. They will celebrate your light, not consume it. Remember this. You are not a battery designed to power someone else's brokenness. You are a sun. You are meant to rise, to shine, to illuminate. You are not meant to be consumed. As this truth begins to settle in your mind, Another figure often emerges from the shadows on our path. This one is different from the overt taker. This is a more subtle character, one who has perfected the art of hiding behind their wounds. This is the one who pretends to be a victim. There's a strange, seductive comfort in casting yourself as the wounded one. It's a way of saying, the world has hurt me, so therefore, I am innocent. This belief gives the ego a soft, comfortable bed to lie in. You get the sweetness of other people's pity and the safety of never, ever having to be responsible for your own life or your own happiness. But Jung gave us another warning here. He said that the victim, when they remain unhealed, can become the most subtle and effective manipulator of all. Why? Because when your pain becomes your entire identity, the very idea of healing feels like a kind of death. The person who pretends to be a victim doesn't always realize what they're doing. It's often an unconscious strategy. They have built a permanent home inside their sadness. They've decorated the walls with all the reasons they've been wronged and painted the rooms with elaborate stories of their suffering. To leave that home would mean stepping out into the vast, frightening unknown. It would mean being powerful, being accountable for their choices, being truly free. And for many, that freedom is the most terrifying thing of all. They have become so used to the script of their suffering that they don't know who they would be without it, so they cling to it, and in doing so, they subtly manipulate the people around them to keep their story alive. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button, and consider subscribing for more content that helps you protect your energy and live a more authentic life. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Take care of your light. We often talk about people who take from us, stealing our time, our attention, our validation. We think it's cruelty, but it's usually just fear. A fear that, without borrowing our light, they might just disappear into the dark. But here's the truth. Your soul doesn't run on borrowed energy. It blooms only in its own, self-sourced light. The people who truly love you will never ask you to dim your fire for them. They'll pull up a chair, sit right beside you, and build their own fire, warmed by your presence. You are not a battery, designed to power someone else's broken machine. You are a sun. You are meant to rise, not to be consumed. And just as you start to embrace this truth, another shadow often appears on your path. This one isn't the obvious taker. This one is more subtle, more insidious. This is the one who hides behind their wounds, the one who pretends to be a victim. There's a strange, almost seductive comfort in being the wounded one, isn't there? It's a way to say, the world has hurt me, so I must be innocent. It gives the ego this soft, comfortable bed to lie in, surrounded by the sweetness of pity and the safety of never having to be responsible for your own life. But the psychologist Carl Jung warned us about this. He said that the victim, when they remain unhealed, can become the most subtle and powerful manipulator of all. Why? Because when your pain becomes your entire identity, healing starts to feel like a death sentence. The person who pretends to be a victim doesn't always know they're pretending. It's often unconscious. They've built a permanent home inside their sadness. They've decorated the walls with all the reasons they're hurt, painted the ceilings with elaborate stories of how they've been wronged. To leave that home would mean stepping out into the vast, terrifying unknown, a world where they might have to be powerful, accountable, and free. And for some, that freedom is the most terrifying thing of all. Have you ever met someone like this? Someone who seems to be in a constant state of suffering, not because life is uniquely cruel to them, but because they are clinging to that suffering as proof of who they are. Every single conversation, no matter where it starts, eventually circles back to how they were wronged, how nobody understands them, how they try so hard, but nothing ever works out. Their pain is absolutely real, but it's their deep attachment to it that keeps it alive and breathing. Our first instinct is to help, right? We're taught to comfort people who are hurting, to pour our love and energy into their wounds, but there's a hidden danger here. The victim archetype doesn't feed on cruelty, it feeds on attention. They have this emotional gravity that pulls you into their orbit, and before you know it, you find yourself apologizing for your own happiness, for the light they refuse to see in their own life. They'll say things like, "You just don't understand my pain," and if you dare to offer a solution, they'll push back with, "You're just making me feel worse." In their world, every potential solution is a threat, because a solution would mean the end of the story, the very story that gives their life meaning. Let's be honest for a moment. Have you ever done this yourself, even in a small way? Held onto a hurt a little too long because letting it go felt like you were erasing an important part of your story, because if you stop suffering, you might actually have to start living, and that's a whole new challenge. The mind is incredibly skilled at turning sorrow into a throne. The ego will sit right on it, place a crown on its own head, and declare, "Look how deeply I feel. Look how cruel the world has been to me." But this isn't genuine feeling, it's a performance. It's a way to keep the wound open, to make sure the story never, ever ends. Imagine a gardener who spends every single day watering a patch of dead flowers. Every day, they kneel beside them, weeping, tending to them, hoping for a miracle. But no new life can ever grow there, because the soil is completely waterlogged with grief. The sun is waiting patiently, ready to offer its warmth and light, but the gardener never looks up. The victim archetype forgets the most sacred truth about pain. It was meant to pass asterisk through asterisk you, not to build a home asterisk inside asterisk you. Healing doesn't mean erasing the wound, it means you stop worshiping it. The strongest souls are not the ones who never stumble and fall. They are the ones who get back up and stop calling their fall destiny. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become asterisk after asterisk it happened. So, when you meet those who live as eternal victims, try not to resent them. Instead, see in them a reflection of your own moments of weakness, those times when you also sought sympathy instead of growth, and then, with compassion in your heart, gently step out of their story. Because when you refuse to play the supporting role they've cast for you, you give them the greatest gift of all, the chance to wake up and write a new one for themselves. As the echoes of their sorrow begin to fade, a new archetype often emerges from the shadows. This one isn't weak, or at least, they don't appear to be. In fact, they look incredibly powerful. This is the one who worships control. Some people don't crave love, they crave certainty. They can't stand the natural tremble of the unknown, the quiet space between heartbeats, the unsettling feeling that life has a will of its own, far beyond their command. So, they build these enormous walls of order and routine around their hearts. They measure, they plan, they predict, they command. They operate as if the beautiful, chaotic flow of existence could be captured and held, like water in a closed fist. They truly believe that if they can control every single variable, they will never have to feel the messy, unpredictable pain of chaos ever again. Jung called this the tyranny of the ego, this powerful illusion that life can, and must, obey our will. But the universe has a funny way of pushing back. The more they tighten their grip, the more life seems to slip right through their fingers. Thank you so much for journeying with me through these ideas today. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the human spirit. Your support means the world. Have you ever met someone who just has to be right? Who can't stand a moment of silence? Who plans out every conversation before it even starts? They seem so strong, so in charge, but if you look closely, you can see the exhaustion in their eyes. They speak with such conviction, but underneath all that certainty is a deep, trembling fear. The fear that, in reality, no one truly commands life. It's like they're trying to be the captain of an ocean that doesn't need one. They believe the universe waits for their permission to unfold. Control is their shield, but it's also their cage. They call it responsibility, but really, it's just fear wearing a costume of discipline. Deep down, beneath that polished exterior, there's a child who once felt powerless, who was hurt by something they couldn't stop, and in that moment, They made a promise to themselves. Never again. I will never feel that helpless again. So now, every plan, every rule, every little perfectionist detail, a piece of armor they forged in the fire of that memory. But over time, that armor has become too heavy. They don't just wear it anymore, they live inside it. And have you ever noticed how this constant need for control makes love almost impossible? Love is wild, unpredictable, and free. It demands trust, surrender, and vulnerability. But for the person who worships control, that's the ultimate risk. They can't bear to be touched by the unknown. They mistake obedience for peace and confuse safety with love. They might speak gently, but their eyes are always calculating. They offer affection, but only in carefully measured doses. They build relationships like contracts, full of invisible terms and conditions. But life doesn't care about contracts, it keeps moving. No matter how tightly they grip the reins, the tide always shifts. The people they try so desperately to protect eventually walk away, not out of rebellion, but because they're suffocating. Imagine a man standing at the edge of the ocean, screaming at the waves to be still. He commands the tide, curses the wind, and tries to order the stars to freeze in the sky. Of course, the sea doesn't listen. It breathes, it moves, it dances to its own rhythm. Finally, when his voice is raw and broken, he collapses onto his knees. And in that moment of complete surrender, something amazing happens. He hears the sound of his own breath again. He feels the wind not as an enemy, but as life itself, moving through him. He realizes he was never meant to control the ocean, only to learn how to sail on it. This is where true power begins. It stops being about force and becomes about flow. It stops being about domination and becomes about understanding. True control isn't about command, it's about consciousness. To master anything, you first have to stop being afraid of it. To master yourself, you have to stop hiding from your own vulnerability. Have you ever wondered why letting go can feel like dying? It's because the ego dies a little every time you choose to trust life more than your own rigid plans. But that's a death worth dying, because it makes room for your soul to breathe. The person obsessed with control doesn't understand that peace can't be constructed, it can only be allowed. When they finally collapse from the sheer exhaustion of trying to manage everything, they often see it as failure. But it's not. It's grace. It's the universe reclaiming its natural flow through them. And from that surrender, they start to see something softer, something purer, a love that asks for nothing in return, a life that doesn't need their permission to simply be. But just as this truth begins to dawn, another character quietly steps out from the shadows. This one wears a gentle smile and offers a warm hand. It's a mask of warmth that hides a different kind of control. This is the mirror of the one who uses kindness as manipulation. You see, not all chains are made of iron. Some are woven from flowers. They're offered to you with a smile, and they feel so gentle, so soft, you don't even notice they're tightening around your neck. There are people who have perfected the art of appearing kind. Their words are soft, their tone is warm, and their gestures seem full of care. But beneath all that sweetness, there's a hidden agenda, a quiet hunger for control, a desperate need to be needed. They'll help you, absolutely, but their help always comes with invisible strings attached. A silent expectation, a debt that you can never quite seem to repay. The psychologist Carl Jung once said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And so, some people hide from their own emptiness by pouring themselves into saving others. They become the healers, the fixers, the comforters. But what they're really searching for is validation disguised as compassion. Have you ever received kindness that didn't feel like freedom, but like an obligation? They say, "I'm just trying to help," but what they really mean is, "I need you to stay a little bit broken so I can feel whole." They build their own sense of worth on your wounds. They thrive when you're struggling because your need for them gives them an identity. Their light only seems to shine when it's reflecting off your darkness. You thank them? Of course, you feel grateful. But deep down, something feels heavy. It's like you're not allowed to grow too much or heal completely. Because if you did, you wouldn't need them anymore. And that is the subtle tyranny of false kindness. It doesn't enslave you with fear, it enslaves you with gratitude. It keeps you obedient not with chains, but with guilt. They'll say things like, "After everything I've done for you, they make you feel like your independence is a form of betrayal, like your distance is ingratitude, like your freedom is just selfishness." But true love, real compassion, asks for nothing in return. It flows like a river, giving freely without keeping score. It lifts you up until you can stand on your own 2 feet. And then it lets you walk away, with no resentment, only joy for your journey. Thank you so much for watching. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content like this. It really helps the channel grow, and I appreciate every single one of you. See you in the next one. Some people use kindness not as a gift, but as a leash. They don't want you to stand on your own 2 feet. They want you to lean on them forever, because if you stop leaning, they have to face the emptiness within themselves. Have you ever noticed how these people always say things like, "I just give too much"? But if you look closely, they don't really give they trade. Their gifts are contracts written in invisible ink. Their affection is a negotiation disguised as generosity. It's so easy to fall for it, because we're taught that kindness is always good, and to question it is cruel. But spiritual growth isn't about being polite, it's about discernment. It's about having the courage to look at what seems like love and ask, is this truly love? Or is this control dressed in tenderness? There's nothing more disarming than a manipulator who genuinely believes they are good. They convince even themselves that their dominance is just compassion, that their constant interference is just them caring. And because they believe their own story, they remain blind to the harm they cause in the name of helping you. The poet Rumi beautifully said, "The wound is where the light enters you," but the manipulative empath doesn't let the light in. Instead, they turn that wound into their home. They move in, decorate your pain, and then call it healing. The real danger with these people isn't their malice, but their complete lack of self-awareness. They don't realize they're feeding their own ego with their so-called kindness. They've mistaken having power over you for having a purpose, and they've confused codependency with genuine love. But you can feel it, can't you? That subtle imbalance just beneath the surface. That slight shift in their energy the moment you start to grow and stand on your own. Their smile fades just a little, their warmth cools. Why? Because they loved the version of you that needed saving, not the version of you that finally learned to fly. You have to learn the sacred art of creating distance. To love people without becoming their savior. To help without holding them captive. True love isn't about possessing someone. It's about having the courage to release them. When you finally decide to walk away, you might feel a wave of guilt, as if you've abandoned someone who was only being kind. But the truth is, you simply stepped out of a story that was written to keep you small. And as you do, you begin to understand something deeper that even the manipulator is suffering. Their need for control is their addiction, their kindness is their disguise. And maybe, just maybe, one day they realize that the love they tried so desperately to own from others was the love they were always seeking within themselves. But not all destruction comes with such a convincing mask. Some people are drawn to pain itself. They destroy themselves in the name of love and call it devotion. This brings us to the next mirror we must face, the one who destroys themselves and calls it love. There's a certain kind of person who believes that love must equal sacrifice. They were taught that devotion has to hurt, that to truly love someone means you have to bleed for them. They believe the highest virtue is to completely disappear for the sake of another person. You see them everywhere, the silent givers, the emotional caretakers, the ones who stay in a situation long after they should have left. They put up with neglect, betrayal, and disrespect, and still whisper to themselves, "But I love them anyway." What they call love, however, is often a much older pattern, a pattern of self-erasure they learned in childhood. It is a quiet belief that was whispered into their soul long ago. If I just suffer enough, I will finally be worthy of being loved. The psychologist Carl Jung wrote that every person carries a wound, and we build our personality around that wound. For these souls, their core wound is unworthiness. So, they build an entire identity around giving, enduring, and saving others. They make themselves the offering on the altar of their relationships. Have you ever met someone who confuses their pain with their purpose? Someone who thinks saying no is selfish, that setting boundaries is cruel, and that love means staying until it completely breaks you. They destroy themselves so gently, with such good intentions, with the loyalty and patience that borders on self-annihilation. They call it unconditional love, but it's not love, it's fear wearing a mask of devotion. It's the fear of being alone, the fear of being unwanted, the fear that if they don't have someone to save, they might just disappear entirely. They say things like, "I can handle it," or "I'll be fine," or "I just want them to be happy." But behind those words, there's a quiet scream, a heart begging to be seen, to be loved not for its usefulness, but simply for existing. The philosopher Alan Watts once said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone," but these souls never leave anything alone. They constantly stir the pot, trying to fix what's broken in others, trying to heal what refuses to be healed, trying to love what only knows how to take. And the more they try, the deeper they sink into the quicksand of their own compassion. There's a real tragedy in their beauty. Because they love so deeply, they can't see that their love has turned into self-destruction. They pour themselves out until nothing is left, and when the emptiness finally echoes back at them, they whisper, "At least I gave everything." But giving everything isn't love. It's surrender without awareness. It's the martyr's illusion, the belief that your sacrifice will somehow redeem someone else's life. Have you ever noticed how the ones who love like this often attract people who feed on their giving? It's because energy always seeks balance. Where there is endless sacrifice, there will always be someone with endless need. It's like a cosmic law. The one who bleeds will always invite the one who hungers. And so, the pattern continues, a dance between the savior and the taker, the giver and the devourer, the healer and the wound. To break this cycle, they must face an unbearable truth, that love without boundaries, impurity, it's chaos. They must learn that the most loving thing they can do for themselves and for others is to finally say, "I love you, but I love myself enough to stop."